Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, imagine a place, a canvas maybe, painted for centuries with these vibrant greens of paddy fields, the deep blues of the Arabian Sea. Now picture that canvas rapidly being overlaid with new strokes, really bold ones. The glint of modern resorts, maybe the hum of pharmaceutical plants, the promise of new highways cutting through. That's Sindhudurg. It's on India's Konkan coast. And it's this place where, deep-rooted tradition and really rapid transformation are locked in this fascinating, sometimes pretty challenging dance. Today we're taking a deep dive into Sindhudurg. We really want to focus on how a region completely redefines itself when its economic foundations shift. Our mission really is to unpack what this profound transformation means for something as fundamental as land use, property development, the very ground beneath people's feet. You might even find some parallels, to shifts happening in communities closer to you.
That's absolutely right. Sindhudurg is, well, it's like a living case study of economic reengineering, isn't it? It's actively moving from its traditional base, which, yeah, we'll definitely explore, towards a much more diversified economic landscape. And this is largely driven by strategically planned emerging industries and, well, a booming tourism sector. Understanding this evolving economic mix is really crucial because it profoundly influences the district's real estate development patterns and its land use policies. It creates this complex interplay of old and new.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. Before we talk about where Sindhudurg is headed, it feels vital to understand its origins. What were those long-standing economic pillars that historically supported this district? What was the original blueprint, so to speak?
Historically, Sindhudurg's economy was, and to a significant extent it still is, firmly anchored in what we call the primary sectors. So think agriculture, fisheries, and mining. In agriculture, the main crops are rice, coconut, kokum, that's a local fruit, quite unique mango, and, crucially, cashew. A significant point here is that much of this cultivable land is managed by small and marginal farmers.
Ah, okay, so small family holdings mostly.
Exactly. We're talking about families relying on often quite modest plots, maybe just a few acres, for their livelihoods. Then you've got a substantial fisheries sector. That makes sense, given its extensive coastline, about 120 kilometers along the Arabian Sea. And this isn't just about, traditional fishing boats going out. There's also specific coastal marshy land identified as highly suitable for commercial shrimp farming.
Interesting. So aquaculture potential too.
Yes, which represents a potential future growth area. And for decades, mining activities have played a role. They've been extracting valuable deposits like iron ore, bauxite, and manganese.
That paints a really clear picture. A region reliant on livelihoods that can be, well, pretty precarious, right? These traditional sectors, while foundational, often meant seasonal work, varying incomes, often quite modest. Does that inherent instability then become the main driver for seeking new economic pathways, almost like a necessity rather than just an ambition?
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. The reliance on, say, rain-fed agriculture, fluctuating fish stocks, finite mining resources, it all created an economic ceiling. It really highlights Sindhudurg's fundamental vulnerability, a dependence on sectors that inherently limit, long-term stability and broader prosperity. So this isn't just about growth for growth's sake. It's about survival, resilience.
Right.
It really sets the stage for why diversification isn't merely an option, but a vital necessity for the region's future. It's about empowering people with more stable, higher value opportunities.
Okay, so this is where the story of Sindhudurg really pivots. Because it's not just holding on to its past, is it? What are these new engines of growth that are fundamentally reshaping the district, creating these new opportunities you mentioned?
Yeah, the district is truly embracing a future-forward approach, and importantly, it's doing so quite strategically. Tourism, without a doubt, is the biggest game changer here. Sindhudurg was actually officially designated a tourism district way back in 1997.
Wow, 1997, that's some foresight.
Incredible foresight, yes. And it's absolutely a cornerstone of its current and future economy. It's a huge catalyst for real estate development. Naturally, you've got these pristine, uncrowded beaches like Tarkarli, which is famous for its backwaters and water sports. Historical marvels like the ancient Sindhudurg fort, that amazing sea fort built by Chhatrapati Shivaji.
Right, the one on the island.
That's the one. Plus serene religious sites, stunning waterfalls tucked away in the Western Ghats. Adventure sports, too, like scuba diving and snorkeling, are becoming major draws. And the government is heavily invested here. Strategies like the Maharashtra Tourism Policy 2024 and the National Swadesh Darshan 2.0 scheme are actively promoting the sector. These initiatives are really designed to attract significant private investment. So you see new resorts, hotels, tourist infrastructure popping up.
So it's not just relying on the natural beauty, it's a concerted effort to capitalize on it. Makes sense. What else is emerging beyond tourism?
Well, beyond tourism, a really pivotal initiative is the proposed Adali Pharma Hub. This is being driven by MIDC, that's the Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation, the state body that plans and develops industrial areas. This hub aims to attract non-colluding pharmaceutical formulation units, machinery manufacturing, and related industries.
Non-polluting, that sounds key.
It's critical, absolutely critical, given the district's eco-sensitive designation as part of the Western Ghats. It's a very conscious decision to bring in industries that offer stable, skilled employment without compromising the pristine environment. And then we have the micro, small, and medium enterprises, the MSMEs. They're always crucial for local economic vitality, right?
Definitely. The backbone in many ways.
Exactly. Support for them includes an MSME technology center focusing on general engineering and food processing. It provides training, technical assistance. Plus, the National One District One Product Scheme, ODOP, has specifically focused on processed cashew in Sindhudurg.
Leveraging the local crop.
Precisely. It bolsters the local agriculture processing industry, adding value to a traditional crop right there within the district instead of just shipping out raw cashews.
That's a powerful combination then. Leveraging natural assets, strategically attracting clean industries, and boosting local processing. And it's clear these emerging sectors aren't just appearing out of thin air. They seem underpinned by strategic government initiatives and, well, significant infrastructure development. We're seeing literal roads and airports paving the way for these new opportunities, aren't we?
Absolutely. Connectivity is paramount here. Improved air travel through the Chippy Airport, which is right there in Sindhudurg, and also the larger MOP Airport just across the border in Goa.
Right. Omega's a big one.
Huge. It makes the district far more accessible to national and international tourists and investors, too. And then there's the crucial Konkan Expressway. It's significantly reducing travel time from major urban centers like Mumbai and Pune. These infrastructure projects aren't just about moving people. They're really arteries for economic growth. They make the district viable for industries and appealing to a much wider range of visitors. And all this creates a fascinating, dynamic, and sometimes, complex environment. You've got the coexistence of these long-standing traditional sectors and these vibrant, rapidly emerging new ones. There's real potential for both conflict and synergy here.
Let's delve into that. Where do you see the primary points of friction or conflict arising from this economic shift? Because change, especially this kind of foundational change, rarely happens without, well, some growing pains.
You're right. It's definitely not a seamless transition. One of the most significant challenges is the pressure on land. It's almost inevitable. As urbanization expands, as new infrastructure like roads and airports get built, and as tourism development increases, agricultural land comes under immense pressure.
Right.
There's also the issue of speculative conversion. You get non-farmers buying up land, maybe hoping to profit from rising property values rather than actually using it for cultivation.
Flipping it, basically.
Essentially, yes. And this poses significant challenges for genuine farmers. They might find their land, their livelihood, suddenly becoming unaffordable, or maybe surrounded by completely different land uses impacting their traditional way of life.
Yeah, I can see that. A farmer looking at prime agricultural land that's suddenly worth a fortune to a resort developer. That creates a powerful dilemma. But it's not all conflict, is it? You mentioned synergy. What are the opportunities here where these different sectors can actually benefit each other?
Absolutely. There are significant opportunities for synergy. The burgeoning tourism sector, for instance, can create entirely new markets for local agricultural produce.
Like farm to table.
Exactly. Imagine farm-to-table experiences in resorts featuring local rice, fresh cashews, or maybe kokum-based drinks and dishes. This provides a direct, potentially higher value market for farmers beyond just the traditional wholesale channels. Furthermore, diversified income streams from these new industries can reduce that sole reliance on traditional occupations. Maybe a family member works in a pharmaceutical unit during the agricultural off-season. That creates more stable household income overall.
Spreading the risk, diversifying the family income.
Precisely. And we're already seeing this play out rather nicely with the MSME sector and that One District, One Product initiative. By focusing on processed cashew, they're leveraging a traditional agricultural product and adding value right within the district. So the cashew farmer potentially gets a better price because their raw materials is now part of a higher value product like roasted cashews or even cashew fini, the local liquor. It supports a more robust local economy.
Creating a higher value chain.
Exactly, for what's already there.
That's a really powerful point about value addition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what does all this mean for real estate development patterns? How is the very physical landscape of Sindhudurg changing because of these economic shifts? It must be profound.
It is indeed profound. The evolving economic mix is the critical factor shaping real estate development here. First, we're seeing much more diversified demand. Tourism growth, as we said, directly fuels demand for hospitality properties, everything from large hotels and eco-resorts to, charming homestays run by local families.
Right.
But it also drives demand for second homes and leisure properties. These are often sought by urban investors, maybe from Mumbai or Pune, retirees looking for a peaceful escape, or holiday seekers wanting a coastal retreat.
So, lifestyle buyers as well as investors.
Yes, they're looking for an investment, sure, but also a certain lifestyle. Meanwhile, those planned industrial sectors like the Adali Pharma Hub promise more stable, year-round employment opportunities. This, in turn, stimulates demand for various types of residential housing. You'll see an increased need for affordable housing for the local workforce.
Makes sense.
Alongside perhaps mid-segment and even premium options for the incoming professionals, engineers, managers who are relocating for these new jobs.
So it's not just one type of property, it's a whole spectrum, catering to a new, more diverse demographic mix. What other changes are we seeing in the types of properties being built?
Exactly. Second, we're seeing entirely new property types emerge that were, frankly, pretty rare in the district before. Development is moving beyond just traditional individual homes. Now you see large-scale integrated townships offering things like gated villas, farmhouses, service departments, alongside, regular apartment blocks.
More planned communities.
Yes, catering to a more diverse and often more affluent clientele, offering modern amenities, security, a planned environment. And third, there's a definite shift in the investment hotspots. Development is increasingly concentrated in specific emerging investment zones. These are linked directly to new infrastructure and economic nodes, not just the traditional coastal belt, although that's still popular, of course.
So where are these new hotspots?
Think areas around the Amappi Airport influence zone, along the Konkan Expressway corridor, and, naturally, around the Adali Pharma Hub. This indicates a potential shift in focus, maybe, from purely coastal properties to well-connected inland locations that offer different kinds of opportunities driven by industrial or infrastructure growth. Which naturally raises a critical question. How do land use policies adapt to such profound economic shifts?
Yeah.
It's not just about what people want to build, but what the district allows to be built and where. This is where the planning really, really comes into play.
That's a crucial point, because with such rapid change and diverse demands, the challenge for policymakers must be immense. Balancing growth with protection, old with new. How do these policies actually shape the physical development on the ground?
Well, the transformation necessitates very careful regional planning and zoning. And the interplay of these sectors has a profound influence. Policies need to precisely demarcate land for specific uses. For industrial areas like Adali, it falls under an MIDC Zone D category.
Okay, what does that mean, Zone D?
That's the Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation's designation for a particular type of industrial zone. It guides what types of industries and infrastructure can be built there, usually focusing on less polluting ones in sensitive areas. Then you need to carve out specific tourism zones, for example, an exclusive tourism zone T5 that might specify density, height restrictions, or the types of hospitality structures allowed. And of course, residential development needs its own designated areas. All this directs development towards planned areas and, crucially, significantly influences land values.
Right, land zoned for a hotel is worth way more than agricultural land.
Exactly. What's particularly challenging and I think fascinating here is how the district's pronounced environmental sensitivities play such a huge role. Its coastal location, its designation as part of the Western Ghats Eco-Sensitive Area, or ESA, these heavily influence land use. You have strict Coastal Regulation Zone, or CRZ, norms that apply to coastal development. They impose restrictions near the high tide line.
So you can't build right on the beach, basically.
Pretty much. You can't build permanent structures within a certain distance, which directly impacts beachside development plans. The ESA designation prohibits or highly regulates certain activities, large construction projects, polluting industries, that kind of thing. This necessitates a really delicate balance between economic growth and ecological preservation. It often dictates what can be built, where, and how.
And adds complexity, I imagine.
Oh, significantly. It increases compliance costs and timelines for developers. They have to navigate these layers of regulation very carefully.
So it's not just about what you build, but how you build it, and with what level of care for the environment.
Absolutely. Furthermore, land use policies must navigate that pressure on agricultural land we talked about and also consider the needs of fishing communities. This might mean exploring linkages with ecotourism, maybe fishermen offering boat trips while promoting sustainable fishing practices. Protecting prime agricultural lands is absolutely essential for long-term food security and the region's well-being.
A constant balancing act.
It really is a constant push and pull. Finally, land governance initiatives are critical for attracting formal investment. Things like the Jivant 712 campaign.
What's that?
It's about digitizing land records. The 712 extract is a key land ownership document in Maharashtra. The goal is better transparency, clearer ownership, and DILMP, the Digital India Land Records Modernization Program, is part of this broader effort to modernize records. These are crucial for attracting formal investment because they provide clear, undisputed titles. It makes it easier, safer for businesses and investors to know who owns what.
Reduces risk, makes things more transparent.
Exactly. And then you have bodies like MHADA, the Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Authority, and KHADB, the Konkan equivalent. Through their roles in land acquisition and building housing schemes, they also significantly impact land use. They might help provide housing for the local workforce, especially important amidst rising land prices driven by all this development.
Okay, so to pull this all together then, the core insight seems to be this. The shift in Sindhudurg, moving from a primarily agrarian and resource-based economy to one increasingly driven by tourism and these carefully planned non-polluting industries. It's fundamentally reshaping the district. This leads to demand for diverse property types in new locations, and it requires truly complex land use planning and stringent regulatory navigation, all to balance economic growth with the crucial need for environmental preservation and, importantly, support for traditional livelihoods. It's a dynamic, constantly evolving landscape, both economically and physically.
That sums it up very well. And what's fascinating here, I think, is not just the specific details of Sindhudurg, interesting as they are, it's how its story reflects that universal challenge balancing development with sustainability, tradition with innovation. As you, the listener, observe changes maybe in your own communities or look at other regions, consider which of these pressures and opportunities might be at play. How do local economies respond to global forces, and how does that then ripple down to impact the very land and the lives built upon it?
A truly thought-provoking point to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Sindhudurg, a region really on the cusp of a remarkable transformation. We encourage you to keep exploring the fascinating interplay between economics, land, and policy in the world around us.